That was 5 people.
We'll talk about selling.
Well, hey, happy Coffee Tech Talk Tuesday day, Marty Rowe. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great.
I'm John Ferguson, and yes, this is Marty Rowe again. How are you doing? Yes, you're
Doing
doing
great.
yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you for asking.
Hey, guess what? I just saw the number below. If you see, it says subscribers, exactly 300. As of the recording right now, live streaming, we have 300 subscribers. So hopefully by the end of this, we'll have 1,000. I don't think that's going to happen, but we're still working on it. We've been working on that 1,000 goal for like thousands of days or months.
No, that's great.
Or
hey, you look tall, John.
Yeah. I'm standing kind of like at a partially high desk because I'm trying to get some exercise. At my age, I'm getting a little up there. So I thought I'd start standing up to kind of reach my age.
Those stand-up desks are getting popular.
They're healthy. I've got some crates here that used to be full of records, but I've sold a lot of them, but not all of them. So yeah,
So you sold your LPs?
Yeah, not all of them, but so. But hey,
any winners? Any big bucks in those?
No, I didn't sell
records?
any of the good ones, but I would like to say that I'm really into jazz right now because first off, last Monday, I believe, April 21st, Herbie Hancock turned 81 years of age, and he is one of my favorite jazz musicians, along with Wayne Shorter.
Yeah.
So Wayne Shorter is also a great jazz musician, and I've been listening to a lot of his stuff from like the 1970, 1969, 1968, and I just found out that I really like it, and it's called post bop, which is almost like free jazz, and it's past like hard bop. It's like post bop. It's like post punk, but it's not punk at all. It's jazz, but it's really good stuff. You got to check it out. And the album, it's called Schizophrenia. And I'm like, I can kind of relate, but kind of like,
can't we all remember 2020?
Right? No, I mean, it is such a great album. So check it out. I love it. And also on next Friday, I believe, not this Friday, next Friday, International Jazz Day. So happy International Jazz Day, which happens to also be Arbor Day. So, and also this week, guess what? It's Earth Day week, but every day is Earth Day week or day, Earth Day day, right?
So listen to jazz and appreciate the
earth.
The earth.
Yes.
There you go.
I'm having a very jazzy, earthy kind of, day,
Now I'm gonna segue us into our show a little bit.
Yeah, you said you had some LPs too, right? You got some LPs.
Yeah, right? and I'm glad you picked up on that term, LP. That was long playing record is what that stood for.
Right.
Now I have in my shop an LP that weighs I don't know, 150 to 200 pounds, somewhere.
Is it a tank? Is it a tank? Lead propane? Is that what is it called?
No, it is an LP, but it doesn't stand for long playing record. It's actually a Slayer espresso machine that's an LP model steam Slayer espresso machine.
Oh, I heard those are nice. Is that like one of those things that you have behind you?
It's very similar to this guy right here. It's a newer version. It's the one that Slayer and like I said, we're going to segue in here because as I understand it, we've got a pretty cool guest on tonight that knows a lot about these machines.
Yeah, we got Tommy Gallagher on the show from Slayer. So yeah.
Love Tommy. He is so cool, very knowledgeable. You will love him. Stick around. But this little bit older, this is what brought Slayer to the game. The Steam line, the LP, EP,
Nice.
and the LPX, which I don't know a lot about what that X brings, but Tommy's going to tell us. Um, uh, those are the machines that, let's put out some great espresso and get a line moving. They're the
Yeah.
machines that really,
Hey,
really
so
can
the
work
one
a shop.
over your right shoulder, you've got a Slayer, and your left shoulder, you got a Clover, and they're both
Uh-huh.
made in Seattle. Isn't that cool? Like you've got Seattle equipment everywhere.
I hadn't even thought of it that way, but you're exactly right.
Right. Well, so hey, Tommy Gallagher's on the show today, the senior product
Excited.
specialist, the America's special sales manager, and so we've had him on the show before. He was at GoFundMe back in the wintertime, and I was like, this is like such a we didn't talk about Slayer much at all, and I was like, we have to get back on the show and talk about the equipment aspect.
Hey, we should. He's sitting back there in the waiting room. We should.
Yeah, let's say hi.
Wave at him.
Yeah, let's say hi. I hope you're enjoying all the spritzel, what's it called, spritzer water. Is that what it is? Bubbly stuff.
Hey, don't eat all my gummy bears.
Yes, all the gummy bears. Yes, because it is what April 20th, right? Gummy bears, special gummy bear day. Right, and it's also Earth Day week. There's my little Earth Day flag. Everybody remember the planet, and also this thing that's reduce, reuse, recycle. And I like this because it's not just about recycling. It's about this mentality of like first reducing. This is sort of like a philosophy of life, reducing your usage, and then or I'm sorry, first reusing. If you have a product, instead of like going out and buying, like a bag every time, reuse your bag. And try to reduce the amount of things that you use. And if you can't reuse and if you can't reduce, please try to recycle.
You're absolutely right. It's a mindset thing. It's a lifestyle.
And that lifestyle, I think transitions into the lifestyle that you are living and that I am living also. And looking at what you do for a living, you do a lot of this reduce and recycle aspect of when it comes to machines, right?
We do a couple of things. We can breathe new life in to old espresso machines and actually get them back out there doing what they were designed to do. But I've yet to get one into a landfill because we do kind of crazy things with them.
Right.
I've got a 4-group barbecue grill.
That's right. And so you
talk about reuse.
And even all the parts that you can't use, sometimes, like I always wanted to build a robot out of the parts, make some art out of it. And here, I was complimented on my keynote PowerPoint skills earlier. Thank you, Tommy. But if you look at like my English here, it's not too good. When it time to call it quit? Okay, when is it time? What I'm trying to say here is when is it time to call it quits with your espresso machine? Like at what point is it kind of time to just say, you know what, it's time to move on? Because I have, we all have car issues, car troubles.
Sure.
And sometimes if you're not mechanically inclined like yourself, it's going to cost you more to fix it than it is worth it. So when do you go ahead and try to invest in a new machine? Look at this one. This one is slightly beat up. Like this one isn't something that you might want to go ahead and, that new barista that just wanted to get the job, they get behind the bar, they're just kind of like, okay, all right, well, we're gonna pull some shots off of this guy. All right, let's so it's cleanable.
Clean those up.
You can clean it up, but how much is that going to cost versus buying a new machine? And what's the cost opportunity? Like, how do you equate when it's time to just say goodbye and get yourself a new Slayer?
That's kind of a I love that. I love how you did that.
Right.
I can answer that. For us, what we try to shoot for is a goal to get them back in and running for about half the price of what it would cost to get them in as new. If it's going to be more than that, then they need to start thinking about maybe some amenities that might come with a new machine. But I'll tell you what, just about the time that we think we've got something in stone, and we have a machine that I know is going to cost twice what it really should, or replacement or whatever, the person I'm talking to goes, but it was my dad's machine. I'm like, okay, I can't put a price on sentimental value. If you want that machine running, then it's probably going to be running. Regardless of what it's going to cost to get it there. So there are exceptions, but you're absolutely right. If it if it's going to cost more, and it's not going to reap you the benefits that a new machine would, you probably should think about that. But do recycle, reuse. Uh, they make great coffee tables. Put some glass on top of them. Put that in your cafe.
Yeah. And even if the boiler is cracked, I mean, you can get a new boiler. It just might be questionably, whether or not, like if your engine blows on your truck, is it going to be worth it to do it? Anyway, that's a nice discussion to have, and I guess it's unique.
We could do a show on that, but not tonight.
Well, okay, you're right. Well, I was going to call you earlier to be like, we need to get the calculator out. But here's a challenge for you. How many parts does it take for Marty to identify the machine? All right.
Oh, I always get nervous on this stuff.
Okay, ready, set, go. What is it?
Well, that's a contactor, and that's a group head.
Well, maybe it's just really small.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that is a variable potentiometer.
Well, yeah, you're getting there.
Yeah,
that might be a giveaway.
That's a watt-low temperature control. So, okay, going back to that second thing, it kind of looks like a group head with ins and outs, but that's a vacuum motor, since it's small. Little Dwyer, that's a vacuum prover. In other words, that's a micro switch that proves that you have vacuum. You're heading into the roaster world.
And boom,
there's a heat element.
Is that the giveaway?
Well, that's an electric heat element. So this is going to be electric. I'm going to say this is probably something Civets would have built.
Boom, there you go. Nice job. I knew you'd probably. Yeah, you got it right. Yeah, I thought you might have got that, because I know that you've worked on them in the past, and I was like, what have we not covered that I know that
the people
maybe people might not know exactly what that was.
The people that know about these Civets roasters, there's a lot of history with Civets, and Michael Civets was a genius when it come to building these machines. But what he wasn't very good at is building a finished, polished product. And so they would ship them out, and it would require people like me, the installers, to make them work. They had good bones, but they didn't have controls and variable pressure for the slides and things like that. And so you had to order some parts and kind of do some engineering to make them work like they should. So I got to know Mike a little bit, and I got to say he was a cantankerous old guy. Maybe I can get that to that point someday. He really did stuff, but it was hard to get information out of him sometimes, because when I was doing this, I was much younger whippersnapper, and he was a little older, and I couldn't hardly get time of day out of him until they had shipped a 2-bag roaster out, and he said, he told me, he goes, now you got to hire an electrical engineer to wire that up, because I won't go into what it took, but there was no one schematic for the whole system. You had different manufacturers of different components, and you had to interpret what they wanted, what they needed, and what this needed, and marry all those together. And he said, you can't do that. And I said, I'm going to have to. There's no one else. We're going to have to make this go. So my next phone call was to ask him about how it was running after we got it running. And he said, you got it running? I said, yeah, we got it running. No, who'd you hire? I said, we didn't hire anyone. I hooked it up, and it's running great. After that, he took my phone calls. It was great. I'd finally gained enough respect out of him.
Did he start calling you to hook up other Civets around the country too? And
no,
like, hey, I know the guy to call now.
No, so I love the concept and what they do. And if you like fluid bed roasting, this is, you actually can see what's going on better than any other fluid bed roaster out there.
I think,
especially on this little 8-pounder. They had
you
an
get
8-pound and a 12-pound.
I don't know where my mouse is. I can't quite drag it over there. But anyway, yeah, I've worked on that. So here it is. Yeah, this is what the following list in part, was building, and you got them all kind of right down there. So hey, we're gonna get Tommy on the show and start talking about espresso machines. And hey, I'm glad that you got it. All right, we're going from Civets to Slayer. All right.
But once we roast it, we gotta brew it. So
yeah. What is this? I can almost see through that sheen looking transparent body and see a boiler. Looks like a boiler. How's it going, Tommy? What's up?
Oh, really well. How are you?
I am doing great. Great. Yeah. Welcome to Coffee Tech Talk.
Yeah. Thanks. Lovely to be here. Always a pleasure with you.
So folks. I'm just throwing this at you. This is one of the machines that we have. And
yeah, that's a Slayer Espresso. It's a version 3. Which is the current version. So this is the machine that the company was founded on. This is the 3rd version of the machine the company's founded on, and it's got a customized glass body, and it looks like the steam boiler has maybe been copper plated. It's a stainless steel boiler, but it looks like it's been plated or maybe powder coated.
Nice.
And there is a preheat boiler that you can make out a little bit. That looks like it is maybe also done that way with some lights on the inside. So pretty.
It looks like Slayer has definitely a signature side panel, right? Like this is kind of pretty much like a pretty like behind Marty. Marty has the same one. The signature side panel is pretty much, and
they're the same model. That one's just super custom. Yeah.
I thought a little bit of history about yourself first, maybe, and then maybe a little bit about Slayer. Because I have a story about my first Slayer experience, not the band, but in Seattle. Actually, South of Heaven was my first Slayer experience, and then it was in Zoka or close to a lake in Seattle, and I pulled a shot, and it took about 45 seconds, and I remember it was a Guatemala, and I was blown away by it. I was like, this is very different. This is a very
Well, John, let me jump in here real quick and share with you my experience.
Okay, your story.
If we had the same thing. My first experience with Slayer was at a show.
At a concert? Like which concert? Was it like back in the 80s or
at the SCA coffee event?
Okay, I got you.
And you have been in the coffee world long enough to know when you're dialing in an espresso machine, not Slayer, a normal espresso machine, and you happen to have it a little too fine and you end up with about a 1-minute shot, and you go, no, don't cancel it. Go ahead and pull that shot. Let's see what it tastes like. You know what those shots taste like. You know exactly what those 1-minute shots taste like. You get a rookie and force it on him. They're horrible. So I go to the show and they're pulling the 30-second pre-brew, kick it over. There's about 28-second extraction, and they're handing these shots out. And I finally wiggle my way up because they were the hot thing of the show. Wiggle my way up, and I get this shot, and I know it's going to be rancid. And it tasted like it had sweet butter in it. It was, I don't know how they did that.
Tommy, what's going on with this?
So did you experience that, John?
I mean, it was a great shot. Tommy, what was your first experience with Slayer? Other than what's your background?
Honestly, my first experience with Slayer was honestly, I had received some shots off of a machine in New York once, but they were pretty mythological for me. I hadn't really run into too many in the real world, and it's mostly when I started working there. So I had previously worked for a coffee roaster called Counterculture, living in New York, and I had really.
They know coffee.
Yeah. That was I was definitely exposed to a lot of coffee and a lot of equipment, but never any Slayer equipment. And it's kind of weird when you work in coffee for a long time. I worked there for about 10 years. Right. I'd been around a bunch of machines, and I kind of was like, oh yeah, I get it. Like espresso machines, I get them. They're kind of all mostly the same. There's a lot of similarities. There's nothing too different from
a lot of shared fundamentals, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And somebody who I had interacted with at a different espresso machine company a long time ago had been working at Slayer and reached out to me and asked me about working there. And I thought that was kind of weird because we had kind of a weird relationship. And I wasn't super interested in it, to be perfectly honest. He asked me about wanting to work there, and I basically said I don't know anything about him except for maybe Slayer's costs like $50,000 or something. There was like a guy in New York that had a gold-plated machine.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
And so like all I knew was like, cool, maybe they cost $50,000. That sounds crazy. I've heard that maybe they're fussy mechanically. And I had heard that, and my impression was, well, if you're the kind of guy who's like buying $50,000 machines, you're probably a jerk. So like, I don't want to deal with it. So like, my answer is like, hey, what do you think about working at Slayer? I'm like, I think they're really expensive. I think they're fussy, and I think jerks buy them. Why would I do that? And he's like, well, there's a lot more to it. And we get to talking, and then I went and visited, and I like checked out the machines. Like, oh, these are super different. Like I had not, in my whole coffee career, I hadn't really interacted with an espresso machine that was actually like different in any kind of way. And this was like very noticeably different. I thought that was really exciting. So, kind of what you and Marty are talking about with these shots with the weird times, right? Like, so Slayer, right now today, Slayer makes 3 different espresso machines. And what's kind of neat is all 3 of them brew coffee differently from each other. All 3 of them have different interfaces, right? So if one has used a Slayer before, that knowledge doesn't necessarily translate to another model, right?
Okay.
And what's kind of neat is, being in the company long enough, you realize, an espresso machine's a tool, and Slayer is pretty interesting and unique in the sense that the machines are all designed and developed by a group of people that have had to use that tool for a living before. There are no espresso machine companies like that, right? Like when a spiel I get into often with people is, if you look at when you learn about an espresso machine manufacturer, you kind of learn their origin story. They very often have 3 things in common. They're probably about 100 years old. They're probably Italian, and the founder was probably a Boilermaker, right? And when you get into that origin story, that Boilermaker probably came from like an intergenerational family of Boilermakers, right? His father before him and his father before him. And if you think about the world like 100 years ago in a place like Italy specifically, steam boilers were the backbone of global commerce. Every train ran off of a steam boiler. Every ship ran off of a steam boiler. Every factory was powered by a steam boiler. And if you were a Boilermaker, you had a very good, safe job. About 100 years ago is also when we started getting electricity everywhere. And it's when we started getting gasoline engines everywhere. So all of a sudden, ships ran on diesel. They didn't need steam boilers. And trains ran on diesel or were powered by the grid. They didn't need steam boilers anymore. And factories were on the grid. And all of a sudden, all these steam boilers are like wigging out. They're like, what do I do? And that's not a coincidence that that's when espresso machines were invented.
And that's probably when steam rooms also boomed, because like I keep on thinking like, if I'm ever going to part out an old espresso machine, I want to build a steam room out of old steam tanks. So anyway, that's my input on that.
I don't know what it's like where you are, but here in New York City, there are many Eastern European steam places. It's like the best way to spend the winter, let me tell you.
Yeah.
It's a little too cold outside. You just go have a sweat.
Yeah, the one place that they had in Lincoln, they shut down because of the pandemic, and they're not going to reopen it. So I'm a little bummed about it. But well, hey, so let's talk.
It's all water droplets. Get out of here. No good.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and that's true. That's true. So hey, I've got this video that I snagged off of the YouTube, which we are on. I don't know, and this is a little a minute long.
Can you play a YouTube video on YouTube?
We're playing a YouTube video on YouTube through Keynote, and I'm going to go ahead and.
This is like a turducken. This is insane.
Okay, so watch that extraction. Wow, this is the single group, and we're done. Let's start that again. All right, we're going to stop it, and then we're going to make that go away, and then we're going to talk. All right, so this is the beginning of an extraction. This is what you call a bottomless portafilter or naked portafilter if you want to get, graphic about it. So you want to get sexy.
My first coffee shop job, we called them crotchless.
Okay. So this is a single group, just the commercial that I found, but it kind of went through how I guess how this kind of works internally, and maybe we're talking it's paddle driven, but is this basically on and off with that paddle, or is there a slow
so there's this thing. This thing's called a needle valve, and that's kind of what makes that like pre-brew, pre-infusion system works. So, I think in the industry we use the word pre-brew or pre-infusion a lot, and it's what it means. It means totally different things at totally different places, right? Like it's generally the water before the real water happens, right? With this machine, we're using this needle. So a needle valve is, you see them in a lot of industrial applications. Slayer owns the intellectual property to needle valves and coffee equipment. And we manufacture a needle valve that's been integrated with a solenoid specifically for application to coffee, right? So it's basically a mechanical flow restrictor, and it's adjustable on like a micromillimetric scale. So it's very precise and repeatable. So we're just blocking the flow of water. You see that solid on water?
So it kind of dials down and it restricts the flow basically. So it's an adjustable flow restrictor.
Yep, a mechanical adjustable flow restrictor. So when you're in the needle valve, when you're in the pre-brew position, what we call pre-brew, you're forcing water through the needle valve. And then when you move the paddle past that, you're bypassing the needle valve for a more conventional flow rate.
So
I think the important thing, go ahead.
I was going to throw you a softball. How does the pre-brew with the restrictor flow differ from a low pressure or what many of the other manufacturers do as their pre-infusion? Where's the delineation between those two designs?
Yeah, well, first, pressure is how hard you're pushing, and flow is like how much water measured gets dispensed over a period of time. So you could have high pressure and low flow. You could have high pressure and high flow, right? So I think a lot of times when you see like pre-infusion out there, it'll be something like maybe a line pressure pre-infusion, which is just relying on the pressure from your mains plumbing. The funny thing about a line pressure pre-infusion is if I have more than one group going at pump pressure, I don't have access to line pressure pre-infusion anymore. So like if the pump is on doing something for another group, you just don't have it anymore. Exactly. And sometimes you see it with like some sort of stepped down pressure. But again, that's the same flow rate. So the same measured amount of water being dispensed over time, or a similar one, just it's pushing less hard versus more hard. Yeah, with this guy, we're strictly metering the flow rate. So what's neat about that is you're using very little water. You can have coffee and water touch each other for a super long time, but it doesn't result in like over extraction necessarily, because you're using a very meager amount. So it actually gives you the opportunity for a more thorough extraction in a lot of ways.
That makes sense. Well, so
without necessarily getting dilute.
Excellent.
The next phase in this video talks about a dual tank system. So we have a steam tank that I think will demonstrate the water going through a preheat coil. So this is different than heat exchanging, right? What is going on?
Single group machine.
What's going on here with the single group machine, right? This is more for more like a smaller applications, I guess, for like maybe not higher volume, but just single group. How many shots can you pull off of this? Like, is it continual, basically?
I mean, I think the limitation is really the speed of the human.
Okay, good. Okay.
You're not really going to run into an issue with the machine.
Okay.
So basically, we fill the steam boiler, instead of filling the steam boiler up with cold water on the single group machine, the cold water goes through this little tube that's wrapped around the steam boiler. So it's warmed up by that. It's similar to a heat exchanger, but a heat exchanger is on the inside and has the opportunity for scale on the inside and outside. This guy's just a tube wrapped around the outside. So there's no opportunity for scale. A neat thing about this guy too, it's a single group, it runs on 110, but it basically has 3 heating elements. There's 2 in the steam boiler, 1 in the group boiler. It can always fire 2 at the same time. So if you're using a lot of steam, if you're steaming a bunch of drinks, it'll pull power away from the group and just double down on the steam boiler to give you more steam capacity there.
Okay, and then these are wood handles. Pretty self-explanatory there.
They're all made by hand by like a real person. I think a lot of times I'll talk to people and they're like, how long does it take to get a machine? And sometimes for these guys, because they're made to order, it takes a long time. Okay. And they're like, well, I don't understand why it takes so long. It's like, it's not like a CNC machine just cut a bunch of wood pieces that are just sitting on a shelf somewhere. Like there's a guy who's going to go make that.
Or actually like handcrafts them and shapes them by hand. That is impressive.
Yeah. Puts them on a lathe, uses sandpaper. Yeah.
Nice. And then the 58 millimeter, awesome commercial portafilter. And there's a shot mirror. Nice program. hot water. Any other comments? Teflon shower screens. Do you like those?
That's a
Kinetic
little
temp control?
outdated. It's not
This is outdated?
Teflon anymore. Yeah,
Okay.
this is like an older version of it. So they're
Okay.
like nano coated now, and we don't have an internal gear pump anymore. It's a mechanical pump.
Well, if you want to get rid of these machines, I'll go ahead and take one off the hands. No problem. I'll take the outdated Slayer. No problem. This is a newer one, right? Is this a newer one?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that one's called Steam EP. That's our entry level machine.
Okay, what is the difference between those three machines that you were talking about earlier that you said that function differently?
Yeah.
Could you kind of explain that? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think like an espresso machine's a tool that does a thing, right? And I think Slayer as a company that makes tools, we are very much comprised of people who have had to make coffee for a living. So it's like, hey, I'm going to make the tool that I really want to use, and instead of just, I think the industry, you see a lot of people who make essentially one machine and they just kind of dress it up in different clothes and they sell it for different amounts of money. What we want to do is make different tools that do different stuff for different applications a little better, right? Like I could bang out a nail on the wall with a ball peen hammer and a sledgehammer. They'll both do it, but one's a little better at the job, right? So we just want to make like really specific good tools. So this guy, Slayer Espresso, is an extraction tool. It prioritizes extraction. That's why you got access to the needle valve. There's no needle valve in this guy. This guy's got sort of ease of access, ease of use. It's a much more accessible machine, and it's got speed and repetition is like this thing's purpose. Yeah.
I see. So like what's the kind of the history of that longer shot that Marty and I were talking about, like the one that took about 40 seconds or whatever. Is that apply also to this newer model, or is this kind of like more built for efficiency and speed? I think I was watching a video that was put out by the owner recently that kind of talked about something. He mentioned Australia. It's like the cafes in Australia are very busy, so it's kind of a different model for a different application. So that's interesting. So you said there's three different types. You have like the original that had the needle, and then they have
variable flow rate. So Slayer
variable flow
Espresso,
rate.
that first machine, a
Okay.
variable flow rate. This guy is called Steam EP, and it's got a fixed pressure and a fixed flow rate.
Okay.
And then we've got another machine called Steam LP, which this is Steam EP too. So this one's also got buttons, right? So
is this the one?
Yeah, so this one's called Steam LP. We're
Yes.
back to a paddle style actuator. And this one uses a pressure regulator internally to shift between two pressures, right? So this is fixed flow rate, variable pressure. So again, three machines, one's a variable flow rate, one's a fixed flow rate, fixed pressure, one's a variable pressure. Nice. Which all does different stuff. It all has different effects on the coffee. And the idea is we want to make tools, again, specialized tools, precision specialized tools that are all sort of designed for different applications. Something like the flow rate control, to sort of exploit that to its fullest, you do need to have a much longer contact time. And we also understand that we don't believe that there's only one way to do anything, right? So it's like, hey, in certain applications, one may deprioritize the sort of like singular obsession with excellent extraction. So we can make a really excellent tool to accommodate that as well.
Well, I've got a story about the tale of two coffee shops right here in Kansas City. We've got one coffee shop that has embraced and continued to embrace the Slayer shot. And so they roast their own coffee. And so they roast and develop blends and pick single origins that do really well with that pre-brew extraction that the Slayer will give you. Another shop that started out with the earlier generations found that they needed a little faster flow with their customers. And so it wasn't quite as important to have that process as it was to put out a good product, but a little bit quicker. So they found themselves using that earlier Slayer, unlike a Slayer. They were just not doing the pre-brew and developed a really good shot without that pre-brew. And so when they upgraded to the next machine, they went into that steam family that you're talking about that doesn't have that um, that feature, and it fits them really well. And they have coffees that perform really well with that aspect. So right here in Kansas City, we've got two different philosophies that are really doing a great job unto themselves with the two different tools, as you say. Different application, different coffees, different goal, happy customers in both locations.
Well, I'd like to talk about the Steam one. I hear you don't have to rebuild these. Is that true, or something like that? I don't know. Less maintenance.
On the Steam, yeah, on the Steam machines, there's no Steam valve rebuild at all. We basically we use a three-way solenoid as the Steam valve. So we use the exact same three-way solenoid from the group as the Steam valve, right? So for every espresso machine manufacturer, parts like a three-way valve or like a heating element, those are the parts that have the lowest failure rates. So we just stuck that guy on the steam valve. The switch, the switch you use to turn the steam wand on and off is a magnetic switch. There's no physical moving parts making contact there. So the idea is, let's take the thing that requires the most maintenance and make it be the thing that requires the least maintenance.
Do you have any tech courses that you offer, like technicians, to learn about your equipment?
Yeah, that's a great question.
How often are they scheduled?
Once a month.
during the time of the pandemic.
Yeah, we do these really great ones over Zoom. They're hosted live by the team at the factory. They're 2 days. It's 90 minutes a day. And yeah, we do it once a month. So if you're interested, hit me up and I'm happy to throw that into you. It's open to anybody who wants it.
Yeah. How much is the cost? What's the entry fee? Is it depending on dealership? And
no, it's a whopping $0. We're not
Wow, yeah. Well, sign me up.
Yeah, most definitely.
All right.
Yeah, John,
I'm in.
John, yeah. I've done it. Been there, done that, sat through both days. It's presented very well. If you leave out of there and don't fully understand how these machines work, then you weren't listening.
I'm sorry. What did you say, Marty?
Nate Hall was inspirational or instrumental in getting a lot of that done. So little shout out to Nate.
Special shout out to Nate Hall, global tech support guy for Slayer out in Seattle.
Yeah.
So you do this like once a month. That's awesome.
But they put together a pretty good show. They've got some nice videos. They've got some different camera angles that allows you to see down inside what they're doing. It's good. It's really good.
How long does it take to order a machine? I mean, a lot of these are custom made, or do you have them in stock?
Yeah, Steam machines built on the Steam platform we generally have around, and if we don't have around, we can turn it around in a couple of weeks. The Slayer Espresso, the original style, the V3. There is a standard configuration that we generally have around, but a lot of people, most of the ones tend to be customized, and if you order a customized one, it's built to order. So 8 to 14 weeks. So
if I pick up the phone and I call and I'm like, hey, I need a part, how long does it take to get a part? Like 2 weeks?
Generally pretty quick. I mean, the factory is in Seattle, and they have all the parts there because they got to make machines there. So
okay, so everything is hand built and manufactured and assembled in Seattle, right?
Yep. Nice. The Georgetown neighborhood of Seattle.
Okay, so exactly, we were talking about Georgetown earlier. Where's I used to live there for a very, very short period of time, like up in the north by Carkeek, by Carkeek or whatever park. But where is Georgetown? Like a Queen Anne, or I just don't remember, like Capitol Hill?
It's a little further south. So like if you're like downtown and you go past like the stadiums headed south, it's like on the other side of that stuff.
Like by the Starbucks area and then over there,
Yeah, a little past the big old Starbucks, yeah.
Okay. I haven't been down there. I'll check it out.
Cool. Well, there's another espresso machine factory down there. Sinesso's like around the corner. It's an industrial neighborhood. It's an industrial part of town.
I like it. Well, yeah, like Marty.
It would be worth a trip out there. Visions is not too far from there. And Georgetown itself, if you're a foodie, they've got some microbrew beer things going on. They've got several culinary offerings. It's kind of an artsy little part of town. It's really pretty cool.
So what keeps you busy in New York right now during the pandemic? How is that, treating your day to day at
Oh,
work?
it's weird. My day to day is I've definitely adapted to the pandemic a ton. And I actually find that has meant I'm doing a lot of like in-person conversations with people, which has really made my day way long. And I'm trying to figure out how to transition back to a transition into a new post-pandemic style of working, because when it's a lot easier for me to go places, I can't really sustain like the kind of stuff I've been doing, right? Which is like a weird dilemma to find oneself in.
Right.
Cooking a lot. I bought a stupid car kind of recently, so just kind of working on that guy. And yeah.
A stupid car.
Nice.
Well, I mean, owning a new car in New York is stupid, but I've never owned a
Oh,
stupid car in New York, so I
okay.
bought a stupid car in New York.
I get it. I thought maybe there was something on the opposite side of the smart cars.
Oh, like a gas guzzler.
Oh,
There you go.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I got one of those. Yeah, but also, but it hauls espresso machine, so it works. I don't know, but yeah. So, are you going to be going to any events this year? Are you looking at like SCA at all, or is that going to?
Gold question mark at the moment.
Yeah,
It's like
still.
it's a large cash investment. We're a really tiny company.
Yeah.
I think like in the history of the whole company, we've made about 6,000 machines ever. Which when I talk to there's people who ask me about our machines, and they're talking about like other machines in our peer group, and I'm like, well, you got to realize like that company makes like 30,000-40,000 machines a year. We've made like 6,000 machines ever in the history of the whole company. Like we're orders of magnitude smaller. We can't really afford to like do that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I'm flattered that you're comparing me to them, but like it's a totally different situation.
Where do used Slayers go after they are like when someone buys a new Slayer after they've had an old Slayer? Where does the old Slayer go? Can I buy it from them? like are they immediately snapped up? Like, are people like when people want to like have a used Slayer for sale, is it not that hard to sell? Are they like quickly?
That's a really great question. As someone who works for the factory, I don't really deal in used machines much, because it means the factory, there's people in the factory that build new stuff. So when people buy used stuff, that's less stuff for them to build.
Yeah. Marty, how about you? Have you seen any used Slayers out there?
Well, from my perspective, because that is what we do. We will buy old antiquated machines and breathe new life into them. Slayers are hard to come by.
Yeah.
People love them. They want them. They're a part of them. So the quantity of used Slayers is not a lot. The ones that we have had, they're sold before I even think about what we're going to customize them like.
Right.
They go immediately.
Yep.
So.
Well, great. I'm good. I'm gonna get back to my jazz collection, and I think we've got some questions from above from Dietrich. What do you got? I can hear Dietrich just fine. Everybody else?
Sure. Okay, there we go. Now my mic's working.
Mic is checked.
Yeah. Tommy, you mentioned the class. Is that something that is more geared towards, like your people who are working on espresso machines, or are people who are buying Slayers, like, is that something recommended for them to hop in as well to learn more about their machine? And how easy are these machines to fix with like some of the smaller issues?
Oh, that's a great question. They're not super hard to maintain or work on, right? I think because Slayer was founded by a guy who was a technician for a long time, there's always been a culture of encouraging people who are interested in working on their own equipment to sort of empower them with everything they want or need to do that. So we don't really like gatekeep or like keep anybody from having access to taking the class. We make it pretty available to anybody who's interested. That said, if you have been a technician before it's going to be a lot easier. And if you have not been a technician before, it's going to be a lot of brand new information and concepts. So it might be a little bit overwhelming, but yeah, they're absolutely open to anybody who's interested. We have a lot of people who are like, hey, I think I want to take care of it myself. It's like, hey man, if you want to take care of it yourself, you are welcome to take a class. And half the time people are like, thanks for giving me the class. I learned that I don't want to take care of it by myself. And the other half of the time people are down. So.
And you said that these were ridiculously expensive, like 50 grand. How much is this one? This SMRP?
Oh, they're actually not even close to 50 grand. You know,
like
it's like if you have it made out of gold, it's 50 grand for sure.
Okay. But like, yeah, so these are
that guy's like those start at 10 grand, the single group.
Okay, the SMRP.
But the single group's also, you know, it's a commercial machine, right? They're very popular in people's houses, but it's like it's a commercial machine, right?
I wanted to chime
and
in
the point of
well,
this,
like with the
almost
prosumer kind of aspect as well. Is that kind of the machine that you usually point people towards with the prosumer, or is everybody kind of picking what works best for them?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. You know, I think about the word prosumer. That's like people love to say that, and it exists in many industries, not just ours, right? And when you look at prosumer equipment in general, it's always either like a non-professional consumer brand jamming every feature possible into like a flagship product, or it's a professional commercial brand stripping out content to make something accessible to a regular person. And in that regard, I wouldn't necessarily call it prosumer. It's a commercial professional machine. There's not a lot of concessions made to make it easier for you to use in your house, right? There's no like tank option. There's no like volumetric stuff. There's no concessions to make it sort of more accessible to a layperson. It's designed to be commercial capable. And the idea is, I think there's a lot of machines in this category that are prosumer, but like, if I was to open a coffee business and have that be the backbone of my coffee business, I would quickly run into the limitations of that machine. The point of this machine is you would run into limitations of the human before you run into limitations of the machine.
And the only thing that maybe stands out for me, it would be the concession is that this is a 110.
Yeah.
And that
it's 110 and it's small enough to fit on a kitchen counter underneath your cabinets.
Yeah. And that,
you want to put it.
And that's a huge draw, because there are other single group machines that are 220 or, you know, that draw a lot more power, that are much harder for a lot of mobile units that, you know, don't have that ability to generate the power.
Just like figuring out the wattage on a generator to power all the stuff you need if you're in a mobile application gets pretty tricky. We do like a pretty clever thing on this guy. So this is a tech centric podcast. So
go for it. Geek out. Geek it out.
The steam boiler has a very over wattaged heating element. And it's a dual coil heating element, but we've wired each coil separately on its own SSR. So it's got a really beefy heating element, but because it's wired separately, the machine believes that it has two heating elements in the steam boiler. And then the group has its own separate boiler. So it can always fire two at the same time. So, you know, from cold at startup, it'll get up to operating temperature much faster because it can heat both boilers simultaneously. And then under heavy use, it can double down and use basically the maximum wattage allotment, the maximum amp draw, and dedicate it all just to the steam boiler so that you don't lose a bunch of steam capacity. The idea is, you know, you should be able to steam a bunch of milk drinks back to back to back to back and have it be unflappable. So.
Well, if you want me to bench test one, I'll go ahead and do that. I'm always up for that.
Cool.
put it on my desk. Give it a shot. That's all I got for you. It's 8:00 and it's been wonderful having you on the show. And Marty, it's great to see you again. Dietrich, thank you for hosting. And
thanks so much,
great.
Any last words? Thank you so much for being here. I've heard that we're supposed to talk about socials, which I believe that means how do we get in touch with you via social media platforms? Tommy?
Oh, me. Yeah, I'm at Yen is my mom. My mom, her name is Yen, Y-E-N. So Yen is my mom. That's it. On all of them.
Awesome.
On all of them.
Oh, and then for Slayer, it's Slayer Espresso. Not to be confused with that other Slayer.
Oh, like the South of Heaven thing.
Yeah, or Sarah Michelle Gellar or whatever.
Oh, all the other slayers out there. And Marty, how do we get in touch with you?
Let's go with workbenchcoffeelabs.com. And we are getting a lot closer to getting our classes. I'll just toss this out as we get more comfortable as a nation with COVID and stuff, and more people getting their vaccines. That gets us that much closer to actually holding classes. I think I said it last time. We see so much importance of actually doing hands-on that until we can actually have a face-to-face, we're not going to do the classes, but it's coming. It's coming very, very, very quickly.
Excellent. And
I'm looking forward to it.
I'll be looking forward to that too. So
Me too.
yeah. And I'll be getting in touch with you, Tommy, to take that course or the review, and I can't wait to do that.
Yeah, if anybody wants to take that course, if you
Yeah.
want to send me a generic email at sales@slayerespresso.com, I'm happy to set you up, share a schedule with you, and get you in a class. They're totally free. So
Perfect. I will watch this video again so I make sure that I get that right. And
Don,
anybody who's watching,
you would
please,
love it.
everybody who's watching, please subscribe to this channel. We're going to get to 305 by next week, maybe even 400 by the end of the year. And we're really excited to be here. Coffee Tech Talk. We're usually on Tuesdays, mostly all the time, maybe once a month nowadays. Who knows? Well, you know, it's summertime. It's beautiful out, and we'll see you. We'll see you soon. Bye.
All right. Thank you, guys.
thanks, guys.
Yeah.